Hello, crypto boys and ghouls, and welcome back to the channel, Tales from the Cryptmancer, where we feature content on play and earn games on the blockchain, such as Splinterlands. And in today's video, I want to talk about the simple argument to adjust Splinterlands pack pricing. And I'm also going to talk about the Splinterlands card pricing in general at the end of this video, and go over some interesting data that I think you're going to want to stick around to understand some of those data points as well. And this video is really to talk about the upcoming pricing of Conclave Arcana packs, where Matt has suggested I think those are going to be at maintain that $4 or pack pricing ish range, with some options for legendary packs and more of the starter packs, which with lower pricing. But we'll go into that in a little bit more detail. And the reason for this video is I actually got asked this question on X just the other day from Bolts. So Bolts, shout out to Bolts for inquiring out there and for getting me to create a Splinterlands video. I know it's been a little bit here since we've created one, but I think this topic is important and I want to give my, opinion on it, as well as some data points around it. And really, if we want to basically start with what my argument is essentially comes down to is that Splinterlands pack prices for Chaos Legion set at $4 a pack, and then subsequently set at that price or $5 for Rift Watchers actually, and then $4 for Rebellion, and then maintain that pack pricing for Conclave Arcana coming up. I think it's just totally out of line and not good for the game, and just not smart marketing, not smart pricing, and well, it's just needs to be adjusted and relooked at. And we'll talk about why here in this video. Specifically, what I want to show you here is some of the differences between what is happening now and what has happened in the past. Now, this post here that you're seeing from Peak D is talking about the Conclave Arcana set pricing, and you can see here specifically the standard booster packs are planned to once again cost 4,000 DEC or credits with no bulk purchase bonuses and contain the typical 5 cards. So this is roughly $4 in credits, or it could be less if DEC is under peg. But you're basically getting 5 cards for $4, or roughly 80 cents per card. And this standard was set with the Chaos Legion pack pricing, which was different times. And well, different times call for different pricing, because, if you were to go to McDonald's in let's say the 80s, you could go and get a hamburger for 25 cents. If McDonald's priced their hamburgers at 25 cents today, well, they'd be out of business pretty quick. So you can't price your pricing based on the past without understanding the current reality of the market. Now, the McDonald's example for hamburgers I just gave you is obviously an example of inflation on the dollar side, but we've had actually on the SPS and Splinterlands asset side is not inflation from the token price perspective, but deflation, and deflation quite heavily. We'll talk a little bit about that here in just a second. So what I want to focus next on is the announcement of the Chaos Legion pack pricing and set. And that was done on October 14th, 2021, where they announced the pre-sale details and actually the actual pack pricing here for the base prices of packs. It's going to be $4 on October 21st here, October 14th of 2021. And, they basically said, this is the new pack pricing. Prior to that, it had been $2 for Untamed, and I think $3 for the expansion sets, their dice. Now, what I want to share with you here for comparison here is basically the price of SPS token on October 14th of 2021, and it was roughly 86 cents. It was 86.35 on 1013, and it was 86.14 on 1015. So the price of SPS token at that point in time was 86 cents per SPS token, and obviously you can see now the price of SPS is 0.0069 cents per token, which is actually more than a 99% decrease in value of the SPS token. Obviously, the pack prices haven't gone down 99% since October 14th of 2021 when the Chaos Legion pack prices were announced. Now, we don't expect them to do that because obviously when Untamed came out at $2 a pack and it sold, its number of packs for the player base at the time, it was reasonable. People weren't necessarily buying it for the SPS earnings or DEC earnings at the time, and they sold, just fine because people wanted to support the game and play the game. Now, what I want to share with you is a couple things here, specifically talking about what has changed since October 14th, 2021. And look at the economy specifically compared to when Chaos Legion was released at $4 a pack, right? Now, SPS price we just talked about, it's gone down 99% from 86 cents down to well below a penny. But you're probably like, Tails, when we were playing in October of 2021, we weren't earning SPS, we were earning DEC. And yes, that is correct. We were earning DEC. And the thing with that is DEC earned at that point in time in Champion Leagues was like $5 to $8 worth of DEC per game in cases of at the top of the champion levels at that time. And if you recall, DEC could be used to earn SPS in the airdrop. So not only were you earning $5 to $8 in DEC per game that you won, which by the way, you can play a lot more games back then, you could also then use that DEC to passively earn SPS airdrop. So you were earning a lot of money back then. So the $4 pack price for new cards to earn didn't seem very unreasonable at all at the time. And that's why Chaos Legion sold very well. Again, at that time, you could earn with ghost cards at the time. So your pack investment really was talking about earning at the highest levels of the game, not just earning from a botting perspective at low levels of the game with ghost cards. You could also sell reward cards that you earn by playing the game. Anyone remember $50 O'Shaughnesses that you could pull and sell instantly on the market? So yeah, $4 pack prices seems like a no-brainer when money is flowing all over the place in the economy, which it obviously isn't. You can't sell a $50 O'Shaughnessy reward card because, well, you can't even sell any reward cards unless you want pay to unlock them because they're all soulbound now. It's another big change. Also back then, the DEC burn price for your cards wasn't reduced. Now for newer cards, the DEC burn price is drastically reduced. So you don't have a way to recoup some of that cost for your cards if you don't want to sell them and you don't want to use them. And also the value of these newer cards for Conclave Arcana or Rebellion, etc. on land is drastically reduced as well because they don't have full production point capability. So you're seeing the prices of, or the value of what the rewards and awards you can win in Splinterlands go down drastically, and the prices to play the game go up drastically. More prices that we're talking about that you have to pay to play Splinterlands these days. You have to stake SPS to earn. You have to pay a wild pass to play your cards in the wild league if you have older cards, or if you want to use a commercial bot program. To get airdrops from your packs, you have to buy wagons for those. So there's a lot of additional expenses in today's current Splinterlands. Those expenses have gone up significantly because they didn't exist in the past, right? And the value of the rewards you're getting has gone down significantly. This is a very simple case of why the Splinterlands pack pricing is not in line with the market, why it needs to be adjusted, and why it's really hurting the game. Now, I want to go back and, because I know people are going to say, well, Matt's argument is that we need to keep the pack prices high because that keeps the card prices stable. I'm going to talk a little bit about that, right? First, let's talk about Matt's view of Splinterlands. This was a comment from Matt directly on a blog that he posted on PeakD on Hive on April 28th, 2023, where he goes and gives his basically thoughts on the game, where it's at, the future, basically the strategic strengths of the game. And it talks about, his overall vision and goals. And what he says is interesting here. And I'm just going to read you these few sentences from Matt from April of 2023. What Matt says is, in order to succeed, Splinterlands, or we, need to be very realistic and honest with ourselves about why people play Splinterlands and spend money in the game rather than the multitudes of other games on the market. Even though many of us might like to believe otherwise, I believe that the reality is that it's more about the tokenomics than the gameplay, period, right? That is what I believe a true statement to this day to be. If you look at Splinterlands gameplay, its graphics, it's not impressive. Like, I'm just gonna throw it out there. I'm not gonna pull any punches. I'm just gonna say it. It's not impressive as a game, period. It hasn't changed drastically since 2021. It doesn't have great lore that people are trying to write, Netflix series off of. The card art is generic and not very original. It's not great, in my opinion. I mean, people may disagree with that. Art is obviously an acquired taste, but this is not groundbreaking. Like, no one's going to go out and buy a Splinterlands card for the art and hang it on their wall necessarily. Unless you're a Splinterlands maxi, then you might do that, right? And that's fine. But the point here is that the game itself is not bringing a ton of players because of the gameplay. And you can look at the spellbook sign up for that to understand that reason, right? It's a very niche market. Within TCGs, it's not even a traditional TCG, right? It is an auto battler card game, which is even a smaller niche of the card game niche out there, like a Hearthstone type of niche. So it's not like it's going to have a natural huge audience to come and play this and want to play this type of game. So when Matt, I think, is honest here in 2023 and says, well, really the strength of our game is our tokenomics and our systems around rentals and the flywheel and stuff like this that we put in place, which is a separate topic of the status of where that's at and if it's still a strength or not, or Splinterlands. But in either case, the whole point here is, at the core of the game is the economy and the assets underlying the game, because that's what drives further investment in cards in the game more often than not. And if you have a pack pricing metric that is not in line to encourage more people to get into the ecosystem and to play and earn in this system, then you have a broken system. And you don't have the onboarding that you need to continue to sustain and grow. And it all starts there. So what I would hope with Blaze and the consultants that have come in from marketing, that they have as part of their marketing plan, the analysis of the pack pricing and the player base and this pack sales, to say, look, we need to do something about this pack pricing here, because if we go in with the status quo, it's going to hurt us in our marketing push, because, well, pricing and price points are a key part of marketing strategy. And if that's wrong, anything else you do may be fantastic and exemplary, but you're just going to fail because your starting point is you've got a car with square wheels. It's just not going to go fast, right? So this is why I bring up this point. And I think Matt knows this deep down within his heart. And if he doesn't get the pack pricing for Conclave Arcana right, it's going to be problematic for Splinterlands, and it's really going to stunt the growth or the future of this project. And I want to also touch on comparisons, right? Because I think a lot of times people talk about Splinterlands and they live in a Splinterlands bubble within Web3 and within just the gaming genre in general. And what I want to share with you is data from another project, just from a card perspective. It's not specific to pack pricing, but it's specific to card pricing, card value, card print rates, and also just the underlying cost to play the game. And that has a factor on how many players you have in your game, believe it or not. Now, Parallel is another card game in the Web3 ecosystem that is competing with Splinterlands in some cases because it is considered a card game. It's not an auto battler, but it's a card game within Web3. And with Parallel, just to give you a quick overview, is to play Parallel, you need 40 cards to create a deck to play the game. And that's just as simple as I'll make it, right? You need 40 cards. Like in Splinterlands, you need a bunch of cards to form a team of 6 monsters plus a summoner. And you need a lot of different summoners and monsters because the rule set changes, the mana set changes, and you need to be dynamic. With Parallel, it's different. You just need 40 cards and you use that same deck to play your opponents time and time again. And the decks change as metas change and as cards change and get released and stuff. But the long and short of it is you need 40 cards in Parallel and you're good to go. You can have a maximum of 3 non-legendary cards in Parallel in your deck at any given time. And there's certain cards that are pretty much included or a staple in every successful deck build for certain paragons, basically. What I want to share with you is meta cards in Parallel and what they cost. This is a Singularity Steward. It's pretty much a staple of any Shroud deck within Parallel, which is like a faction or an element within Parallel equivalent. And you can see here that a Singularity Steward is 47 cents on the market. You buy on OpenSea right now on base. It costs you like less than a penny to buy this card. So it'd be like a total of 48 cents to buy this card. You buy 3 of them for $1.50 total or less than $1.50. And you have 3 out of your 40 cards pretty much for life in Parallel for a Shroud deck, right? Same thing for Cathari, Valarusi Striker, similar to Singularity Steward for Shroud, is pretty much every Cathari deck will have 3 of these common cards and they're 48 cents a piece. And that's 3 out of your 40 that you need, basically. And I can give you another example here. Universal card or neutral card, Alvaro Interrogator. It's definitely a meta card. It was used recently in the major event that happened this weekend in Parallel, where they gave out $20,000 to the first place winner there. Congratulations to Viper for winning that. This card is meta as well. It's universal. I believe this is a common as well, and it's $2.57, right? So you buy 3 of them and you're out like $7.50, right? Roughly $7.50 US. So these cards are definitely meta. They're affordable. You can see the print rate on these cards: 54,000 Alvaro Interrogators max supply, 57,000 Strikers, and 47,000 Singularity Stewards. So the print rate in the grand scheme of things, not super high, considering that Parallel assumes to have at some point more than 15,000 players, and they probably have more than that right now, to be honest with you. But if you need 3 Singularity Stewards to be competitive, and you only have 47,000 cards, that's only like 15,000 decks that can have this card, right? As an example. Now, Parallel also has ways to mint more cards as players. You can create echoes of your NFT cards, which is kind of like what Land is trying to do with Splinterlands, where you can create your own cards. That's already existing there. It uses dynamic pricing. We can talk about that later if you're interested in Parallel. But you're probably going, Tails, why are you talking about Parallel pricing and cards and being affordable and stuff? Because you know that they're meta cards that are legendaries and stuff that you can only have one of, that define the decks, not the common cards, and they're expensive. I would say, yeah, you're right. I mean, for example, here's Wong. It's an alpha card. There's only 1,000 copies in existence of this card. It's a legendary. It's super meta. It's used in pretty much every competitive deck on the tournament scene and ranked ladder scene. And it's $272. And that's expensive, right? And you're like Tails, see, here's what we're talking. Parallel is not cheap. It's expensive. And I was like, in comparison, Splinterlands is much more expensive. And here's why. This card is legendary. It's super meta, as we talked about. You can buy 1 copy for $272, but it's like a max level copy of this card. And you can use it in every deck that you ever play in Parallel. It's a universal neutral card, kind of like Dr. Blight. And for $272, you're good to go. You can earn Prime with it forevermore, basically. And it's 1 out of your 40 cards that you'll pretty much use every game. And Yes, it's expensive, but how expensive is it compared to Splinterlands? Well, let me give you an example. Here's Night Stalker as an example. This was a promo card from the Hall of Legends. It's a rare promo card for fire and death. It's a dual splinter, sneak attack with blast, and it's a good card, right? It's a nice card. It's, you could say it's meta, right? If Tofu wasn't so dominant. And it's a really good card. Do you need it to win? Probably not. Do you need it to compete at the highest levels of the game in tournaments in Splinterlands and ranked battles? Yeah, probably. How much does this card cost? Well, at max level to play at champion level, it's going to cost you $298. 115 BCX at $2.59 a BCX is $298. It's actually more expensive than Wong and Parallel. And arguably speaking, Wong and Parallel is like the tofu of Parallel, and it's very reasonable and priced less than Night Stalker. And Night Stalker is just one card. Like for a Fire or Death Splinter team to be competitive in Splinterlands, you would have to basically have like 10 to 20 type of Night Stalker type cards wandering around your deck, to be able to field teams across the competitive landscape. So all of a sudden, your competitive costs are very, very high in Splinterlands because one somewhat meta card is super expensive. So I just want to set the baseline here to say that the card prices within Splinterlands, despite the pack prices, whatever the entry level pack prices are very, very expensive compared to competing Web3 projects out there, which is a factor in getting new players into the game. Because if cards are meta cards to get, you need 115 copies or 11 copies or 400 copies or whatever, and these cards are expensive and you need lots of these cards, those costs add up. And the rewards, as we saw earlier, the rewards here, SPS rewards at 0.006 cents. I mean, these are pennies a day. Like, you're making not a lot of money playing Splinterlands, and the costs to enter Splinterlands and be competitive are quite high. So there's a disconnect, right? If you want to add new players, the tokenomics have to be such where the card prices are reasonable, right, to get into Splinterlands to play competitively, and the rewards are also commensurate with those prices. The price cost to play Splinterlands and earn right now, if you buy cards and not renting is separate, obviously, but it's still a part of the system here. But the card prices inherently within the market are disconnected from the actual rewards you can earn. So the only time you're going to get really new players from a marketing perspective into Splinterlands in the current environment is if they want to play because they like the lore, they like the card art, they like the game, and they're not really in it here to make money, because there's much better projects and games out there to make money that cost less to play and you can earn much more. So that is a key piece, because as we go back to Matt's statement here, the strength of Splinterlands is supposed to be its tokenomics. And I know he says tokenomics doesn't necessarily mean how much ROI you can earn every month, but more generally how players can gain value for themselves sustainably over the long term by participating in the ecosystem and having fun while doing it, right? So right now, you can have fun while playing Splinterlands for sure. You're going to pay a lot to do so, and your ability to gain value long-term sustainably is not very high at the moment. Let's be honest. Now, I want to share one last fact with you as a parting thought from a data perspective to keep in mind that is kind of scary, right? If we look at the SPS token market cap, right? The fully diluted market cap of Splinterlands is 20 million with all 3 billion SPS at current prices, right? For this project, $20 million. The actual market cap based on the circulating supply of SPS is 9 million, 9.13 million. So $9.13 million project valuation from a token from an overall project perspective, right, is what we're looking at right now. And you can say at maximum 20.62 million based on all SPS being issued. Here is the scary thing to kind of be the skeleton in our closet here in Splinterlands, if we're going to be honest. If you look at today's current Splinterlands card market cap, right? Not the token cap, not the SPS value of the project, of the tokens in the project, but the value of the NFT assets or the cards within Splinterlands. The current Splinterlands card market cap is sitting at $35.279 million. For a token, for a project whose token market cap at best fully diluted is 20 million and at current is 9 million. That's scary because that is disproportionate, right? The amount that you can earn if you owned all of the Splinterlands tokens in existence at $20 million worth of value is less, almost 50% less, right? I guess almost 100% less than the actual card market cap values or valuations of the assets that you use to earn the token. That is a huge red flag, a huge warning sign if you're an economic person or tokenomic person, because the value of the assets that earns the token is almost 2x the value of the token itself. That's scary, right? So this is what's at stake, right? If we do not get the token price turned around and more players in here and the pack pricing right for this particular set coming out for Splinterlands, it could be really bad for the project, right? So this is why this simple set of arguments to adjust the Splinterlands pack pricing for Conclave Arcana is important. It needs to be heard. The decision makers and the executives at Splinterlands and the marketing team needs to sit down and go through this with smart, educated data and people and figure this out. Whether they roll the pack prices back to $2 or put a dynamic pricing algorithm in place to adjust the pricing of the packs while it's being sold based on factors like SPS token price or reward pool prices, or even set valuations off the market from card perspectives. Whatever formula for dynamic pricing you want to think of that you want to put in place, or reverting back to the untamed era pricing, something needs to be done, because $4 pack pricing, well, in the grand scheme of things, is like, well, it's $2 versus $4, not that big of a deal to us. It is a big deal. It's 100% price difference in pack pricing, and it is one of the first things a new player looks at when coming into the game. So there you have it, my simple argument on why Splinterlands pack pricing needs to be looked at, should be adjusted prior to Conclave Arcana. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and until next time, keep stacking those stats.